A woman linked to your ex just made a shocking confession. She is terrified, Archangel Michael says. The night has a tremor that doesn't come from thunder or traffic, but from a truth at your door. It comes wrapped in a trembling voice, a voice that tried to stay silent for months and finally surrendered to the weight of what it knows. She is closer to your past than your shadow was, and yet she stood inches from your present without your knowledge. She moved like a courier through rooms that smelled of old perfume and unanswered messages. Now she is shaking, not from guilt alone, but from the fear of what those messages were meant to do to you. A woman linked to your ex has stepped into the light with a confession that burns at the edges. Her words are a fuse, and they hiss like a wick that has waited too long to be lit. She does not want to be a villain anymore, and she is terrified of the person who asked her to become one. She says your kindness made you predictable, and that predictability made you a target. There was a list of your habits written by someone who claimed to know love but worshipped control. The list was traded like currency between those who valued power more than people. Your favorite cafe table was circled in red. Your father's birthday was marked as an opportunity. Your silence after arguments was labeled as the best time to plant lies. She was told to check your phone when your guard was down and to take pictures when your guard was up. She watched timestamps not like minutes but like triggers. She learned how to mimic your tone in text and how to twist your intentions in whispers. There was a plan to make you doubt yourself first, because self-doubt softens the ground before the storm. They wanted you to mistrust your own memory, to believe you misheard and missaw and misfelt. They wanted you to bury your instincts under apologies you did not owe. She admits she filtered your words through her mouth before they reached your ex. She admits she watered the soil with rumors so that toxic flowers would feel natural when they bloomed. She admits that every time you tried to fix something, she loosened the screws when you turned your back. In private, she was told that you were dangerous in the way soft people are dangerous. That your forgiveness encourages rebellion, that your patience lets the guilty breathe too easily. They said your love needed to be caged before it made anyone honest. You were not supposed to be the one who survived the breakup with dignity. You were supposed to crumble where they could see it. You were supposed to beg, and when you did not, they panicked. She is terrified because she kept receipts, and those receipts look like shadows that learn to write. Screenshots with dates that never intended to see the sun. Voice notes that carry the scrape of someone's anger like nails against a secret. She says there is a group thread with your nickname in it, not as a term of endearment but as a target. She says the thread started months before your last fight and continued long after your last goodbye. She says there were bets made about how long it would take for you to break. There was a night when your ex watched a video of you laughing and claimed you were lying with your mouth open. There was a morning when your ex held your hand and checked your notifications with their thumb. There was an afternoon when your ex promised to trust you and then passed your location to someone waiting by a locked gate. She says she stood by that gate once like a courier of nerves. She says she felt wicked even though she had done nothing yet. She says she walked away, but not before sending a message that pushed a domino you never saw. Her confession is not neat, and it does not absolve. It spills like a drawer of tangled wires, each one attached to something that buzzed in your life. But it is also a map, and maps like this one pull you out of places that were designed to keep you lost. She tells you the night your ex swore they were home, they were 3 blocks from your building instead. She tells you the day your name was dragged, the rumor was seeded by a person who hugged you 2 hours later. She tells you the moment your ex looked sad, it was because a plan failed, not because a heart broke. Her fear is not theatrical. It has a face and a name and a reason. She has been threatened with the loss of her job, the smearing of her name, the release of pictures never meant to be public. Your ex is not who they were when you first learned their favorite color. They became a curator of narratives, taking slices of truth and dressing them in disguises. She was recruited to hand them fabric and pins. The confession grew heavy in her chest like a book someone kept adding chapters to. Every page was a small betrayal with a polite tone. By the time she tried to close it, the book had learned to open itself. She expected to feel free when she finally told you, but freedom has a price. At night her phone lights up with messages that do not say her name, only commands. She sleeps with the sound off and wakes with her heart on high volume. She did not come forward because she wants to be your friend. She came forward because the machine she was feeding tried to devour her too. She realized she was not a helper in the plan, but inventory. You will feel anger, and you are allowed to. You will feel grief, and it will travel through you like a weather system that refuses to be scheduled. You will feel the urge to prove, explain, fix, and perform, but these feelings do not owe the past another performance. Your stability is a quiet miracle, and it terrifies those who use chaos as a tool. Your directness is a locked door they cannot pick. Your boundaries are a language they cannot speak. She says the plan had phases, and you are in the last one. The final phase is meant to bait you back into a conversation where the rules have already been signed behind your back. In that conversation, anything you say would be rearranged into the shape of an apology you never owed. If you return to the old room, they will measure your spine for the weight of the past. If you answer the call, they will record your breath and call it evidence. If you try to clarify, they will cut your sentences into ribbons and sell the pieces as confessions. There is a difference between closure and a trap shaped like closure. One lets you put the story on a shelf and walk toward your life. The other invites you to kneel on the floor and tie a knot that becomes a leash. She is terrified because she knows they will not forgive her for telling you this. She is terrified because she knows they consider silence a contract. She is terrified because she knows they think your clarity is contagious. There are messages she will send you, and you will read them with both hands. Some will ache to be answered, but you will remember that not every ache deserves your attention. You will keep the messages like a climate record of a storm you survived. Your ex learned to confuse attention with affection and control with care. They built a city of mirrors and called it honesty. They invited you to live there and punished you when you noticed the walls. This woman's confession is not a bridge back, it is a gate forward. It may not give you everything you lost, but it returns your right to name what happened. It returns your right to say, "That was not love, and I will not carry it as if it were." You are not obligated to forgive on a timeline that flatters the people who hurt you. You are not obligated to explain why you are walking away from conversations shaped like cages. You are not obligated to teach those who only wanted your silence how to speak truth. You may choose quiet actions over loud announcements. You may choose to archive, document, and release. You may choose to stand so still in your center that the storm grows embarrassed and leaves. Her voice will break when she says she is sorry. You will hear the echo of every time you apologized for something that wasn't your fault. You will realize how many times you tried to bargain with the tide. The road back to yourself is familiar, even if you haven't walked it in a while. It begins with a breath you do not have to defend. It continues with a morning that does not require a performance. There will be a moment when you are tempted to prove that you are good. May you remember that goodness is not a courtroom and you are not on trial. May you let your life prove it in the way a tree proves spring without speaking. Your ex may release a final story dressed like a goodbye letter. It will have plot holes they think are hidden, but truth can see in the dark. It will arrive with the urgency of sirens, but you do not have to chase it. You can choose to let your answers grow long roots and short branches. You can choose stillness that cannot be edited by strangers. You can choose a future that does not require you to rehearse your pain daily. To the woman who confessed, you may one day learn to forgive yourself for the part you played. You may one day return to places that do not ask for your secrecy. You may one day stop waking up at the sound of your old name. To the version of you that was made to doubt the brightness of your own eyes, come back home. To the version of you that knew the truth before it was spoken, take up space again. To the version of you that waited for permission to be okay, here it is. There will be new conversations that do not take anything from you to stay alive. There will be faces that have never rehearsed lies with your name in them. There will be afternoons where your laughter feels like it belongs to the room. The past will knock, and some days you will feel compelled to answer. It is enough to look through the peephole and decide that peace is not inside that voice. It is enough to put the chain on the door of your heart and keep walking toward the sun. You do not have to become a historian of the harm to prove that it happened. You do not have to carry exhibits to every conversation. You do not have to build a museum of what you survived. What you owe yourself is sleep that is not a negotiation. What you owe yourself is hunger that is not a metaphor for attention. What you owe yourself is love that does not need a courtroom or a witness stand. One day, the people who traded in narratives will have to sit with silence that refuses to bargain. One day, the mirror city will crack and men will call it weather, but you will know it is truth. One day, a new season will arrive that does not carry your name as leverage. The woman who confessed will keep counting days without retaliation like beads on a necklace. She will learn the slow art of ordinary mornings. She will learn that terror cannot live where accountability makes a home. You will keep the proof, but you will not let it keep you. You will keep your boundaries, but you will not let them become walls inside your lungs. You will keep your heart, and you will not let anyone rent it with threats. Take the parts of you that were turned into a spectacle and return them to privacy. Take the hope that was used against you and replant it where hands cannot uproot it. Take your future back from the mouths that tried to narrate it for you. There is a softness in you that is not weakness, it is a shoreline for those who come in peace. There is a strength in you that is not hardness, it is a spine that does not bend for performance. There is a light in you that is not theater, it is the quiet glow of a life aligned. Your ex will one day tell a story that does not fit you anymore because you have outgrown its costume. The woman who confessed will walk past the old gate and not flinch. And you will walk forward with a rhythm that needs no permission. May your calm become a language that only truth understands. May your days gather themselves around ease like birds around a safe branch. May your nights hold you without asking for a confession that was never yours. You are not what they feared you would become. You are what they did not think you would survive enough to be. You are a horizon that learned its own name without applause. When the last message arrives, may you feel nothing but a ceiling of peace above you. When the last echo tries to perform, may your silence be a full sentence. When the last shadow reaches, may your light be busy minding its own garden. This is not the end of your story, it is the end of the part that pretended to be the whole. This is the page where the ink stops shaking in your hands. This is the moment the door opens inward, and you step through without looking back. If you wish to express your support further, you have the option to give super thanks, with contributions of up to $20. The confession did not end with the message, it continued like a tide that refused to recede. She sent a folder named Daylight, and inside it were dates that looked like fingerprints. They were the shape of nights you remember differently, now rearranged by proof you did not ask to carry. There were outlines for scenes that were never your life but almost became it. They included instructions for who would send the first apology and who would leak the last rumor. They detailed who would call themselves neutral while holding the knife by the handle. Your name was highlighted in yellow wherever control needed a target. Your calm was underlined in red wherever the plan feared it might fail. Your boundaries were written in the margins with notes like "break here" and "press here." She included audio that breathed like rooms with closed curtains. A voice rehearsed strategies for making you explain yourself until your throat forgot its own purpose. Another voice laughed at the idea that you might stop responding and called it temporary. You listened once and then decided that some files do not deserve to live more than a single playback. You saved what you must and stored it where it cannot reach your mornings. You allowed the rest to become distance, a geography you refused to tour. At sunrise, you stood by a window that had always been honest with you. You let the light sketch your face and refused to argue with it. This was the first hour in a long time that did not require performance to feel real. You set a simple plan that did not worship urgency. First, you reclaimed your accounts from old shadows and turned on keys that only you hold. Then, you cleaned your conversations by archiving echoes that only knew the language of bait. You unfollowed the theater without announcing your departure. You made lists with quiet titles like "necessary" and "tender", and nothing else was invited. You placed the word "peace" where proof had been pinned, and the room exhaled. There was a box in the closet that hummed like a refrigerator for memories. You opened it without drama and touched each thing as if returning it to its true name. What was yours stayed, what belonged to the past learned how to leave. A courier arrived for the last few items that used to live in your home. You sealed the package like a letter to a version of yourself that no longer exists. You wrote a note inside with 3 sentences that did not tremble: "Thank you for what was real. I am finished. Do not contact me." The woman who confessed kept writing at odd hours, as if safety could be measured in timestamps. You answered with clarity that refused to bargain, and she understood. You gave her a list of resources without stepping into a role that would cost you sleep. She said she might move, and later she did, sending you a picture of bare shelves like a declaration of peace. She spoke slowly now, each word a pebble carefully placed on the ground of a new life. Fear receded in her voice the way winter recedes when spring refuses to cancel itself. Meanwhile, the past tried to summon you with the sound of sirens dressed as closure. You treated the invitations like weather reports for storms that do not visit your address anymore. You let them pass without opening a window. You began a ritual that was not dramatic but faithful. You brewed tea and let it count your breaths for you when the day felt heavy. You walked without headphones and let the sky be a witness that never interrupts. You wrote yourself a letter you will never have to share. It held the version of you who learned to be strong without growing sharp where softness belongs. It held the version of you who now knows the difference between attention and love. Your room changed in small ways that felt like forgiveness. A plant finally learned your light and decided to stay. A chair that had been mostly for visitors learned to hold you as you read. Friends who deserved the name started to arrive without needing a script. They brought ordinary news, and ordinary news became the treasure you didn't know you were missing. They laughed from their lungs instead of their strategy, and your walls remembered how to echo joy. The city felt new even though the streets were the same. You understood that freedom is not a map but a way of walking. You moved through the day without rehearsing a defense you no longer owe to anyone. When the mind tried to replay the old film, you changed the channel to something that grows. You learned again how to cook for one without calling it a vacancy. You learned again how to sleep without permission slips signed by someone else's comfort. News reached you that the narrative machine was running out of fuel. Without your energy to harvest, the gears began to grind on air. Without your attention to monetize, the theater had empty rows. The woman who confessed found work that valued her name as currency for dignity, not for gossip. She texted you a single line that carried a lifetime: "I am finally unafraid of my own phone." You replied with a blessing that did not pretend to be a promise, and it was enough. On a quiet evening, you returned to the folder named Daylight. You checked the dates the way a doctor checks a scar long after it has closed. You saw proof not of harm but of distance, measurable and kind. You did not rewatch the videos or reread the threads. You did not audition for the role of the historian of your own sorrow. You let the folder remain, like a smoke detector you hope never screams. The room now holds other sounds that do not ask for ransom. Pages turning without haste, a pot settling on its own heat, shoes whispering against a doormat that welcomes you home. These sounds learned your name and do not mispronounce it. You allow yourself the luxury of ordinary schedules. You answer messages when your spirit is present, not when panic demands compliance. You agree to plans that your body expects to enjoy, and it thanks you in quiet ways. On one afternoon that looked like any other, you noticed that your reflection had stopped bracing. Your shoulders no longer prepared for a sentence that might hurt when it arrived. Your jaw no longer stored the weight of unsent explanations. You understood the mercy of not needing to win. You understood the power of not needing to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding. You understood that survival is not the ceiling but the floor of a life you are building with both hands. If the past ever knocks again, it will find a different door. It will find a lock chosen by a person who knows the worth of their privacy. It will find a home that is full without being loud, whole without needing to perform. You do not need to be the hero of anyone else's story to be the center of your own. You do not need to be useful to those who harmed you to be valuable to the day. You do not need to be perfect to be done with what ended. This chapter closes without a courtroom, without an audience, without a vote. It closes because your breath is yours and your time is sovereign. It closes because peace is a muscle you exercised until it remembered its strength. Some nights will still arrive with old weather, and that is allowed. You will meet them with blankets that do not bargain and music that does not escalate. You will let them pass like trains that no longer stop at your station. Joy returns not as thunder but as a steady hum. It fits into the way you chop fruit and the way you lock your door and the way you sign your name without flinching. It accompanies you like a loyal dog nobody else can call. The woman who confessed becomes a distant chapter you can speak of without shaking. She becomes proof that even the machinery of harm contains people capable of choosing daylight. She becomes a reminder that you owe gratitude to truth but not citizenship to the past. You keep walking toward rooms that never ask you to shrink to fit. You keep choosing voices that never need you to bleed to belong. You keep trusting mornings that arrive without scripts pinned to your chest. And if the world ever asks what happened, you will answer in a sentence that feels like sunlight: it ended, and I began. Then you will go make dinner, and the steam over the pot will look exactly like hope, rising without noise.